Welcome back everyone to Welstopia, and since the last episode I have filled out this map and I also placed some banners at key locations. The gray banner is the center of my territory, and it's right next to the ship where I found the treasure map last time. And of course this is the treasure map, and here we have the X where I found the treasure. This green dot has a gray banner there also, and the gray banner is right here, this location. The banner is technically just outside. This white banner, this is the northern part edge of my territory. This white banner here is the eastern part of my territory. I could put a white banner about 100 blocks south of the X, but that's probably never going to happen since it's in the middle of the ocean. This was relatively shallow, but I'm not going to do any diving just to put it as a flag in the middle of the water. And to the east there will be another one at some point, but that'll be after I build my tavern, where I'm going to place a much larger map. Now, other features that I have is that right just barely south of this white banner here, there is a cave spider spawner. Therefore, I'm going to be placing a little village probably in this little peninsula right here that I have a bridge to the spawner. I have to think about exactly where I have it. Actually, I probably will have to put it right here because this is definitely my territory right here. I'm not too sure about that peninsula. So therefore, I'll put a little hamlet here, and their production is going to be the silk from the spider. So that's probably what I'm going to do with that. My main village, though, of course, is going to be Salt Marsh. And that's going to be, how about calling this Silk Marsh? Okay, this could be Silk Marsh, because they're going to be producing silk from the spider. And this will be Salt Marsh, which is the key village for the modules that I am basing this all on. There are no official maps of Salt Marsh, but they do give you some ideas of what Salt Marsh is, and the most important thing to note is that this is a fishing village. So therefore I'm going to build a fishing village there. And as a result, I'll be building some docks on the eastern side. So this is where the fishing boats will be, and they'll leave, do their fishing, and then come back at night, which is going to be typical of an artisan fishing village. And down here, I'll show you that in a moment what I'm doing with that, but that's going to be a key part of the adventure despite how the module is written. And that's the most important thing to worry about. But this area here, I'm going to be chopping down a lot of trees and turning this into a village. I don't know if I'm going to chop them all down and then replant afterwards, or if I'm just going to chop down as I go along. I probably want to clear it so I have fewer mobs is the most likely thing I'm going to do at the moment. But that'll take a long time to do, so that'll be probably between episodes where you'll see the tree line gradually disappear there. I'll also be building a tavern here, and this tavern is going to act, of course, as the center of the town as it would in a small village. Probably also double as a merchant trading center, because this is where the peddlers will come and stay, of course. Most likely, when the village council meets, they'll meet in the tavern, because a village hall is probably going to be a bit much for this location. We'll have a shrine to the water spirits, because this is all about water, of course, so that'll be very important in there. And we'll have a little bit of a market, probably near the inn. A warehouse where we're going to keep things. A woodwork, or more likely a carpenter than a woodworker. The carpenter might have some woodworking skills, but primarily a carpenter, because the carpenter's job is to keep the docks in shape, work on the ships, or actually boats really. This isn't really a good place for ships. work on the boats and stuff like that. And up around here, I'm going to have some small farms where they're going to be cooking stuff. Main thing that they're going to farm? Pumpkins. Pumpkin pie, that's right. This place is going to be a place for fish, so salmon and cod mainly. But it's also going to be a place where we are going to have pumpkin pie, and that'll all be good. So that's something to supplement in there. And you see here, I have some cooked salmon and some pumpkin pie here. And I figure that when I am doing a lot of running and need to replenish, pumpkin pie is good. And if I'm facing mobs and the like, I find the salmon is a lot better for those situations. So that's why I figure 2 sources of food would be really, really nice. And while I was surveying the area, I did find a little friend here. And the primary reason I decided to tame the wolf, not necessarily have a companion around, though that is useful, but mainly so that he wouldn't go around killing all the sheep in the area. And I haven't got much of a use for sheep yet, but I may get myself a little bit of a sheep farm to work on there to have wool. Though, if I really need wool and desperate for it, I do have that cave spider spawner, and I'd say in either the next episode or the one after that, maybe I'll work on creating a nice spider farm for that so that I can get plenty of string. Now, while I would just love to have an XP farm, I just don't like turning cave spider spawners into XP farms because that is always a mess when I do that. Now this area right here, this I thought would be a good place maybe for the carpenter. Maybe could also serve as a bit of a place for building boats and the like, and perhaps the boats will shelter here if there are storms, and especially these small boats. The larger boats probably will have to stay out here because their draft might be too deep to get through here. But this would be a good place for large boats, but it's not suitable for ships. This place is an awful place for ships to come through. Now you say, wait, Pineleaf, there is a ship right here. Yes. Note where ship is located. That demonstrates how dangerous this place is for ships. The one ship that tried to come through here is now at the bottom of the river. And no one likes to have their ship at the bottom of the river. Now, around here, I'll probably have some homes all over the place because people are going to have their homes. And actually, it could be that the pumpkin pie stuff could be a little bit of a cottage industry. In other words, rather than having a large farm or anything like that that's growing pumpkin pies or something like that, most likely each of the houses will have their own little small pumpkin area, and probably a central area for making the sugar. Maybe a couple people here and there will have chickens, and all together that will give us another wolf. Maybe I should have brought bones with me. I have found some bones, so let's... It took only one. Well then, that's good. We'll take them home. There we go. And then we can start getting a few of those. Too bad it was a cave spider spawner I found instead of a skelly spawner. We could have used... oh, there it is. Yes. This place right here. This island here is going to be very important to the module. In the original module, there is this wizard who had built a house about 4 miles east of Saltmarsh. And, of course, being an eccentric, isolated wizard, people are all afraid to go to the place and all that stuff. And of course, I can't place a wizard's shack 4 miles to the east because that would be too large for what I want here. It'll be outside of my area, and I figure I don't want to build this into the middle of the marsh or just past it. Maybe I have to inspect that to make sure on this, but I have a feeling the ground will be too low. Why do I worry about the too low? Because there is a substantial basement below it, and it goes down for several levels, eventually down to sea level. So therefore, I'll have to build this on high ground. So I thought, well, we're talking about a wizard, isolated. How about a wizard's tower? Isn't this a perfect place for a wizard's tower? Looking out into the sea? Of course, there's another type of tower that really looks out into the sea, and that's a lighthouse. And I was thinking, how about building a lighthouse right here? Well, what about this wizard? What about the wizard's tower and all that stuff? Well, how about a wizard's tower that's also a lighthouse? Think about it. We're talking about someone who wants to live a little isolated from people so he could do his magical experiment. You've got a wizard who will probably be able to cast some sort of light spell or something like that. Right? Light spell, so he could then create the light for it. So therefore he has this nice isolated view. And he has a place to live and all that stuff. He's away from the villagers and all that. He could run his experiments, and all he has to do is to keep the lighthouse running. I figured that would be perfect, except for the fact that I'm currently basing myself so far away that I had to run the gauntlet there. There you are, one nice happy family. So now I have 3 dogs, and hopefully I have some sheep somewhere and that they haven't been all killed by the wolves before I befriended them. Now it's time to head out to the east, I think, so I could find out, is there any place suitable before I go and declare it completely unsuitable. But right now my plan is to use the area right there, have a lighthouse, and that'll be where the wizard lived. And of course, below the lighthouse, how high is this? 71. Because this is not a bad. It could be right here. This actually, I could do the haunted house right here. And then below here, we could have the thing. We have a nice almost cliff here. Oh, well, I might put a lighthouse there just for the sake of building a lighthouse, but I'm now thinking that I could put the wizard's house here. And we can have our basement go down here, and eventually we go down the sea. And this has the advantage where the cave that eventually lets out to sea is not going to be easily seen, because that was my main worry that I had, was that island might be too visible and that the fishing boats will see it. But I don't think the fishing boats will ever come into this little area here. Let's see, this is 1067, 1246. Oh, this is well within my territory. Yeah, absolutely no problem about being in my I thought that anything that would be suitable would be way, way too far east to be in my territory. Alright, I'll just mark that out saying, alright, this is where I want our little location. It so happens that right here seems to be about the boundary of the map. That means the haunted house is going to be just off the map. I think that's perfect for this situation. That's the entire point. This is a house where we had an eccentric wizard just off our map. And of course they're going to be scared of the place. It's not mapped currently. They all think that whoever's living out there is a little bit touched. Yeah, I think that'll be perfect for my needs. And it's not going to be so far away from my base that it's going to be difficult on me, but I think it's far enough away to serve my purposes. Overall, I'm planning 6 major builds for this season, though Salt Marsh probably could be considered a build group rather than just a build, but I'm going to mark Salt Marsh is one of those 6. And in this, I'm going to start out with doing the most utilitarian parts of Salt Marsh. I need a smithy so that I could have a place for my furnace and all of that stuff. And I'm also going to be needing a warehouse because I'm going to need a lot of storage, especially when I start chopping all these trees down and I'm going to have the place to put all this wood. So therefore, smithy and a warehouse, and that's going to be the first thing I'm going to build here. Now, after that, I may be a little bit tired of doing stuff in Salt Marsh, so I head over to the haunted house, work on that for a little while, maybe finish it or maybe come back here a little bit. That's come back here, maybe build a house or two so I could get my pumpkin industry working at, because I do want to make sure that I have a nice source of pumpkin pies. And I'll also make sure I don't forget fishing because I'm going to need cooked salmon also. So that's the second stage of doing on there, will be to do a little bit more building there. And I might jump back and forth between here and the haunted house until the haunted house is finished. Once the haunted house is finished, then I can head over and work on the cave spider spawner. Now I may jump to that a little bit earlier simply because I may be needing the wool, and if I do, yes, I can go back there, start up my wool business, and then come back here, more on Salt Marsh. Then we have a little lighthouse. That's just going to be a bit of a diversion. The idea of the lighthouse then is just a little touch up for Salt Marsh, though, since it's separated it. That's why I'm considering it to be a separate build. And that's to relax when I'm tired of everything else. Back to Salt Marsh. So you see, I'm trying to vary this to prevent burnout throughout the season. After that trip in there, I had to build a ship. And this ship is going to be off the coast in that area. I have to find a nice location that's still within my borders, but might be hard to see from where the fishing boats will be. And that ship is where the second half of the adventure takes place. So it has to be a sizable ship, because while there are no plans for Salt Marsh within the module, there are plans for that ship. So that shows you how important it is for the adventure. I come back to Salt Marsh, and then we head up to Silk Marsh and finally build Silk Marsh, which is going to be a small little area up there. And then we could finish off with Salt Marsh. After that, when I have all of this done, I probably would have had 2 or 3 projects added on top of that along the way. But when all of these 6 are done, then I can assess whether or not I still have time to work on the second module. And if I do, then I have to find a suitable location for that, and that would be interesting. But that is what I'm planning to do for this season then. Build Salt Marsh, its environs, get a spider spawner working, some places for some food here. And we'll see the challenge here because I have built a couple of ships in the past, but I think this will be the most ambitious ship I've ever built. Now, I've built plenty of lighthouses since I built Pharos back in Season 2, but a full village, that's going to be a real challenge. And that's where we'll have to begin on the next episode of Piney Plays Minecraft Welstopia.